podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Well, it's 9:10 on a weekday, Ed. I've had a really long working day. My brain is properly scrambled. But the world has changed immeasurably in the last 48 hours, and we decided there was only one possible medium by which we could try and make sense of this, and that's talking to each other for recording it and getting other people to listen to it.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you prefaced our last show by saying this may well be out of date by the time we drop it, and that was very true, and that was right of you to do this. And we're going to drop this one tonight, I believe, and it may well be out of date by the time it drops as well, because this thing is moving so quickly. And I re-listened to our show this morning because a couple of people had mentioned they enjoyed our analysis, so I just wanted to really think about what we said, and actually quite a lot we said was quite out of date. And it's amazing how much stuff has come out once the media really started to try and dig into this. And you were saying just before we came on air that we almost gave them too much credit for too much strategic thinking. And, we had a long chat about the Overton window and how this may have been a negotiating tactic. I think that was my belief that, although Perez said in his interview, his utterly deranged interview that they'd all signed it, it was locked in, no one could get out, this was really important. Yeah, exactly. That they were definitely doing this. That it still felt that there were two paths they could go down, and one fork led to renegotiation of the Swiss model Champions League, and the other to the Super League. Yeah. And maybe in fact there was far more hubris in this, as you were saying to me just off air, than we gave them credit for, and it has collapsed so quickly. So shall we just recap quickly the steps that have happened since we spoke on Sunday night, because and everything that's come out since, because it is pretty crazy, So step in if I get any of this wrong. What I have seen and read. So, Guardian uncovered some of the documentation. They did that by looking into the source code of the Super League website, and it was there in PDF. Just wow! System admin fired. Number one, and that gave details on the big lie that Perez said in his interview that we never invited Bayern and PSG. We hope others will come in. It was in there. PSG, Bayern and Borussia, all invited and given an ultimatum. Go
I was going to say is let's start from the start. So we finished recording on Sunday, and then it started to become pretty clear that they were talking about an announcement was going to happen, and Gary Neville absolutely kicked off on Sky after the game. I mean, we can have a conversation maybe today and maybe over the coming weeks about who said what and when and what that all means and what they should reflect on about the rest of their lives. But I was quite glad that there wasn't too much of that, and there was more unity and less yes but you said. I mean, there was a lot of yes but you said, including from me, but I then subsequently deleted it about Ander Herrera. But anyway, to start from the start, that evening at 10:30, or even later than that even,
I'd forgotten that step in the whole grubby process.
They announced the Super League. And at that point, everything changed. Because at that point, if this is now a negotiating tactic, this is a driving off the cliff negotiating tactic. Various of the clubs, not including the cowardly Manchester United, tweeted, "We're a founding club of the European Super League, the Super League."
Template press release went out. The website went
terrible
up.
Branding.
Which,
absolutely atrociously cheap looking branding. Called crucially the Super League rather than the European Super League, which I think was about leaving some doors open for future developments.
I think so, given what Perez said in his interview as well. Yes, he very much pointedly said about clubs from all around the world. It's not a closed shop. We've got 5 places from clubs from all around the world. Yes.
And then everything went absolutely crazy. I mean, the level of condemnation. And Jose Mourinho got sacked. On Sunday, Jose Mourinho got sacked. Which should have been the most momentous day in the history of this podcast since the last time Jose Mourinho got sacked. So I wasn't even happy about it because football felt like it had been ruined. I mean, so that happens on the Sunday night. Monday night was when Perez gave his deranged interview. All the way through Monday, things are bubbling. The stuff you said around The Guardian finding that it was a lie that they hadn't invited Peter, that might have been even today, I don't know. But I think that might have been yesterday. So they'd lied about not inviting PSG. Bayern came out today very strongly and said they weren't going to join it under any circumstances. Everton released a kind of beautifully strongly worded statement. Yesterday, Bruno Fernandes tweeted, "Dreams can't be bought." He Instagrammed "Dreams can't be buy," which is almost the same as what I said.
Daniel Podence put out not a tweet, an Instagram post as well, and Bruno reacted to that. And Herrera, as you said, gave the statement. Beautifully written, very authentic statement from Ander. ... If he wasn't playing for Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, and I mentioned that, and then I deleted that tweet because I thought, right now, someone said to me this isn't the time, and I kind of thought it's PSG, but he's right, it wasn't the time. But now. You play for PSG, and anyway, now that we've won, we can do the aftermath. All the way through. I mean, Gary, Monday Night Football was electric. Neville and it was a Liverpool game. Lots of protesters outside the ground. People running after the Liverpool bus and booing. The fans asked for the flags to be removed from the Kop. And lots of banners hung up outside the ground. Was the game even at Liverpool? I can't remember.
It was Anfield, wasn't it?
And so, running after the video of them running after the bus and booing was really funny because people running and booing at the same time is really funny. But there was a lot of solidarity among different fans. I mean, a few pot shots take.
Yes, a joint statement by various supporters trusts of all the quote unquote big six. Can we stop calling them that? Yeah. Can we just call them franchise six or some other cowardly six? Yeah. Anyway, yes, a lot of solidarity there and fans outside the game. What I thought watching that game as Leeds equalised late in that game was, they're just proving why Fenway wanted to do that.
Exactly.
The 2 points Liverpool dropped, the vagaries of competition, and we don't like that sort of thing when it comes to profit making.
Milner, Klopp was terrible.
Pathetic interview. He deserves no credit whatsoever, Klopp. Having a go at Gary Neville, he just missed the point.
He really did. And in his defence, he was under a lot of pressure, and it only happened that day. I think it stood in stark contrast to Pep Guardiola's extremely measured statement. I mean, just completely fearless, unadulterated, very straightforward statement about.
Yes, he confuses me, Pep, because he's the leading figure in a sport washing project. The City and City Group would not be the same thing without Pep. They structured their whole business around getting him, and he wears a yellow ribbon in support of Catalan independence at the same time. And then he came out with what I thought was an excellent statement, and loads more clarity than Klopp around how competition is important, fundamental to football, and it doesn't exist without it. So he's confusing, but so was Neville, because he said nothing in 2005, and he did have a mea culpa about that, to say that he feels complicit in what happened. We haven't even mentioned Alex Ferguson put out a statement. Alex Ferguson, who on every possible occasion supported the Glazers against the fans in no uncertain terms. There's no ambiguity, but his statement was kind of interesting. A little bit incoherent in places, but basically saying, this is changing 70 years of European football. This is not good. And then the last bit, I don't know if they're really doing it, and I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Protect my legacy.
Lots of people opening themselves up to accusations of hypocrisy and imperfectness, but actually, and I was saying to a friend of the show, Musa Okwongo, like the left could learn a big lesson from this, like just achieve the thing and then work, and then like pick holes in the perfection of the people that are achieving the thing. But anyway, that's definitely a side note. All the way through this, I felt extremely bleak about this. It felt very unlikely to me that, and I'm delighted to have been proven so wrong. And I think that a couple of key inflection points for me. One, when Amazon Prime Sport tweeted out, "We've got nothing to do with this," which I thought was really interesting because obviously it wasn't a total denunciation of the thing, but it was an effective denunciation of the thing. And the scale of backlash, little leaks started to come out from boardrooms. They were expecting a bit of backlash, but not this scale. All the stuff with Chelsea about how their pitch is owned by someone other than the club and that they wouldn't let them play the games at Stamford Bridge, which was kind of hilarious.
Yes, that's a legacy of Ken Bates's regime. That one is interesting. Yeah, but even the leak that Chelsea and City had this dumped on them effectively, and they weren't, and this again maybe protecting their legacy, given what City and what Chelsea are trying to achieve for their respective owners, right? It's not really about money for them. So the leak that this was dumped on them, they weren't the driving forces behind it. It was very much the American owners in the Premier League plus Real driving this. Kind of said something, didn't it? It's that was the first edifice of this whole shabby, shoddy, disgusting thing coming down. And like, by the way, I'm not giving any credit to these guys. So none at all. The idea that a multi-nation sport washing project and the plaything of someone who ripped off the Russian people would have some kind of moral center. Not going to have that at all. They are, for different reasons, and we can go on about this on another occasion. They are grubby institutions themselves. But at least they were not able to countenance joining a Super League when they realised the scale of pushback from the football community.
I mean,
and government.
Exactly. And government. So Boris Johnson, not somebody that, for those of you not in the UK and not au fait with UK politics, not someone that you and I would agree with on, I don't know, anything. But he was kind of, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, really, that the government took a very strong stance about this. And whether that was just I presume that was just an opportunity to get some populist support, but also, I think, particularly in the light of Brexit, a genuine fear about the dilution of the Premier League, something that is a very valuable cultural soft power export for the UK.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's probably more powerful than the royal family.
Yeah.
It's certainly more consistent and reliable as a soft power export. So, absolutely. I don't, it goes without saying that this government is not somehow down with the people in support of the working man against the rich who stole their game, right? This is, it's obviously 30 years since Margaret Thatcher tried to, or probably more, in fact, tried to introduce ID cards for football fans, effectively branding football fans as some kind of criminal entity. So, I don't think there's somehow love of the game within this government, but they like the institution. We'll find out in the days and weeks to come if they really want to protect football. There will be an independent regulator of football. It's needed because the game cannot regulate itself, as we've seen. And if they're really, really serious about protecting the legacy as a community.
50+1, baby.
50+1 or some form of fan representation or ownership that has some kind of meaning. Because with Bayern do not have that response if the fans do not represent the major shareholder. I don't believe that's true. PSG got a different reason for doing it, to do with politics, but Bayern do not have that response. I was even amazed, and I was saying it to a different group of people. I was amazed that Real and Bayern and Atletico thought they could push this through without consulting the socios.
Real and Barca and Atletico. Yeah. But Bayern. It's the opposite Bayern, of what I did on the last show. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, and apparently their hubris was so big that they thought they didn't have to. Although there is some anecdotal evidence that this may have been popular, given Real's 900 and something billion euro debt and Barcelona's 1.2 billion euro
and
debt.
Over the last 48 hours, I've been stocking up stuff to say on next week's show about how gross loads of this is and why it's bad and all this stuff, a lot of which is kind of redundant now, but worth pointing out that Florentino Perez made a claim that this was for the good of football and a response to the pandemic. Now, this is like governments putting... governments putting through oppressive, regressive legislation using the pandemic as an excuse. But to do something they've always wanted to do. Perez has wanted to do this for years, and Barca and Real Madrid are not in financial trouble because of the pandemic. They're in financial trouble because they spent 100 million on Philippe Coutinho and a dead Ousmane Dembele, and 130 million in Real's case on a 29-year-old Eden Hazard, and these people...
Yeah. Well, in that same deranged interview, Perez is talking about Mbappe. They're going to spunk 200 million euros on Mbappe at the same time, claiming that they're selling out the game because pandemic. Yeah. Anyway, we know it's a load of nonsense, and that felt like PR aimed at the socios to get them on board. Of course. But yeah, there's so much. You say you're stocking up things to talk about. There's so much. I don't think in all our years of talking about United or writing about United, there's been a story moving this fast and collapsing this quickly in football. And look, this will be gone, but the legacy of it will not be gone, for sure. We talked about government, and I do hope there's a real push either from the sports secretary, Oliver Dowden, or the Labour Party in opposition, or others, or at the European level, to regulate a game that clearly cannot be trusted to do the right thing. Sport, no matter what people who've sort of supported the Glazer takeover have said over the years, is not like every other business. It is not. And the fact that they wanted to form a cartel, an anti-competitive cartel, demonstrates that. And the fact that transfers and contracts get an opt-out from typical European legislation demonstrates that. And the fact that these clubs have 150 years of community involvement, or that Real and Barcelona and Atletico and Bayern and Borussia are partly or fully owned effectively by the fans, demonstrates that this is not normal business. And we can think about this very differently, because it goes beyond just pure investment. So that will be one of the legacies. One of the legacies is that we cannot trust these to run our game. And we must not trust them either. And I think our relationship with this club, as you said, you felt down and bad about it. Absolutely, I felt sick for the last few days about, what this means for, the relationship with Manchester United. I've been supporting them for 40 years or something, And everyone else who goes home and away.
Or something when it's absolutely 40 years.
yeah, I know. Yeah. Wish it was less, but wow, that makes me feel old. What kind of relationship can you have with this kind of institution that is prepared to just, screw over the game and their own fans and just couldn't care less? Couldn't care less because, and I think it was on the Ornstein and Chapman podcast, Mark Chapman had been having some discussions with people in the background. Basically, directors of these clubs are completely dismissive of quote unquote legacy fans.
Exactly.
Yeah. And as we talked about.
And you think one of the things that's interesting is the legacy fans turn out to have enormous power, actually, because this is a united front of fans, government, supporters trusts and things like that, but also the entire broadcast world. And I do think that's really interesting. And I think it's very easy to just, and I'm not saying this isn't a part of it, to just talk about the hypocrisy of Sky and talking about football being for the people when they were trying to charge $14.99 for pay-per-view and blah, 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 all that stuff. We know all that. But there was something I felt fairly honest about Neville and Carragher. Well, completely honest, actually. Completely uncynical about Carragher and Neville's position. And maybe there was some blind spots. And I assume that exactly the same conversations would have been happening if it was Rio Ferdinand and Paul Scholes in the BT Sports studios. You know, this was universally kind of pretty much derided. I mean, there were little pockets of people who were more positive about it, but by and large, there was a very united front against this. And then that brings us to the end game. So Chelsea pull out while crowds were gathered outside Stamford Bridge protesting, to amazing response.
And Peter Cech, I think is he director of football like there or technical director? Yeah, saying wait. And it was a sort of my first take on that was he was saying this is not the time. You know, the typical. You know, there's been some mass shooting. This is not the time to talk about gun control kind of nonsense. But maybe he knew something. Maybe.
I think what he was saying is just give me 10 minutes. We're about to cancel it, basically. City dropped out and then the whole thing fell apart. And, I mean, the reason that we're here, because I think we probably would have talked about this at the end of the week, you know, because whatever. I mean, we've done the 20 minutes on this, but then the thing happened that changed the game. Now, unfortunately, this is not instant gratification because there has been a press release while we've been on air, an announcement from Manchester United that Ed Woodward is to leave his role at the end of 2021. Not the end of the season, but in, 8 months' time. Manchester United has today announced that Executive Vice Chairman Ed Woodward will step down from his role at the end of 2021. But he joined in 2005, became chairman, blah, blah, blah. I'm extremely proud to have blah, blah, blah. This club is well positioned, blah, blah, blah. I will treasure, blah, blah, blah. We have invested more than blah, blah, blah. Absolute idiot talking absolute idiot nonsense. It's kind of a shame that it's not till the end of 2021. I suppose that is pretty standard corporate world movements. This is not a football manager. This is an executive director kind of role.
Exactly. That is very standard in corporates to give time to bring in the next guy and have some kind of transfer of power. And look, maybe this had been planned for a while. Maybe it's been accelerated because of what has happened and the utterly shambolic rollout of Super League. And got to be clear about that. Woodward has failed massively in his role as chairman at Manchester United. He's failed in building a squad. He's failed in appointing the right managers. He's failed in putting the right structures in place. You know, 7-8 years since he was appointed to be the main man, and we finally have a technical director and director of football. And he failed in this rollout as one of the principal instigators. And it's not all his own fault, but he should be fired just for that. He should be fired for many reasons. So who knows whether this has been accelerated because of what happened and this shambolic rollout. The spin given to the BBC was that this was always planned and they brought the announcement forward because of leaks or something like that, which doesn't really make any sense as an excuse at all. But I would not be surprised if there is not something more to this behind the scenes, and we'll find out. And it's a shame he's not gone tomorrow, honestly, because I don't want Pret in the club for 1 second longer than is absolutely necessary. I want the Glazers in the club for 1 second longer than is necessary. And it may well be that this collapsing, along with their great hope of driving extra revenue out of Manchester United, it may well be that we're at the beginning of the end game of them. Because they're not going to get, without Super League and with the next rights cycle, both in Europe and in the Premier League, likely to be down. they're not going to drive more value out of this club than they have right now.
No, absolutely. And I do wonder whether the staying till the end of 2021 is about overseeing a sale as much as anything else. You wonder, because the Glazers...
I hope so, although I guess we better be careful what we wish for.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a conversation that is coming down the pike. Woodward, I will treasure my memories from my time at Old Trafford during a period when we won the Europa League, the FA Cup and the EFL Cup. Honest.
God damn it, man.
Well, the lad before you oversaw us win the league every year. So, I don't know how many champions. Was David Gill in charge in 2008? Yeah, of course he was. It wasn't Kenyan yet, was it? Or maybe it was still Kenyan, actually. But anyway.
I can't remember when Gill took over.
Oh, no, it must have been before that, because it was Gill that said debt is the road to ruin, and that was before 2005.
He did. Yeah. So no, Kenyon may well have left in. He was probably around for 99 and then left shortly after that. Yeah, Kenyon's still hanging around the European football scene.
Well, so's David. David Gill, who was re-elected today for 4 years. So he must be having a hell of a day. David Gill. It's
to the UEFA committee.
4 more years. Ed Woodward got sacked. I am the champion.
Yeah. I mean, look, I just said I hope that this is the beginning of the end for the Glazers at United, and it could well be. I hope this is a new dawn in sort of how we think about football governance and structures. It comes to something when UEFA are the good guys, but they were very strong. Seferin was very strong in his articulation against this. It looks like they are trying to put together private equity money to sort of support the financing of the restructure under the Swiss model. I assume that's going to be ratified. The big clubs will probably get what they want. They won't get all the power to control the marketing and the rights distribution, I imagine, but they will get more money, and it will be more money on the basis of more games, not on the basis of fewer participants. But they'll get something of what they want. So, I'd like to believe that this is a bright new dawn for football, but it's not really. We've just stepped back from the precipice of something that would have been utterly devastating for the game, beyond the 12 clubs that were the founding members of this grubby thing. So, it's a good day. I wish I was more hopeful about what the future would bring for football.
Ed,
it could be. Maybe this is the spark for something at government level.
This is the thing, if you can't be hopeful now, when you're never going to be able to be hopeful, because we've just pulled this thing back from the brink. This thing went right to this wasn't a bluff. They were going to start the Super League. Perez and Glazer and the Glazers were going to start the Super League. And Arsenal and Tottenham were both going to be in it. But that's for another day. There's some very funny things tweeted, like some Arsenal and Tottenham fans being like, why is our club catching strays in every single time anyone complains about the Super League? It's like random coaches being like, but also, how come the 9th best team in England's in this thing? And there is some relevance to that point. I mean, so on Woodward then, if we'll see what the future of football unfolds, I'm sure it won't be a rosy fan-dominated paradise, but maybe they will all, much like they didn't take massive dividends out in 2010, maybe they'll all think twice next time before they do this. I mean, Perez won't, because Perez is just deluded. He's a proper sort of narcissist, isn't he? He's completely detached from reality. Perez is, but yeah, you've got to imagine that the next group of people that wanted to make the huge power grab of football for their own ends will think twice about doing so.
Yes, they will. I mean, what they'll probably take away from this is that it's better to do this all in the background than be balls out and do it up front. So do the politicking behind the scenes and make sure it gets structured in the way you want it without pressing the nuclear button when you find out that your arsenal is empty. Anyway, yeah, and and what I was saying before is, I wish I was more hopeful. I am hopeful, because this is a good day. I feel like my relationship with Manchester United is not the same as it was 2 days ago, and that was as we've spoken about on this pod, a very much compartmentalized relationship. Anyway, disgusted with everything the club represents, except for the 90 minutes between 3:00 on a Saturday and 4:45
between
on a Saturday.
4:30 on a Sunday and 6:30 on a Sunday. Like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just using those times as a proxy. But, and it was going to be very difficult for me to continue that compartmentalization in a world of Super League where it doesn't matter, where a world where that team playing on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever, the weekend team, would almost certainly be the weaker team. And that if you weren't in the top 4 or whatever in your group in the Super League, basically nothing counted for half of the season. That wouldn't have been better football. That'd have been much, much worse. And it's all part of the hubris that you mentioned of these people who just assume just because Real are playing Manchester United that it's somehow better. They don't understand fans. They don't understand fan culture. They certainly don't understand young people, which was Perez's argument. Young people don't watch football, Make it accessible, make it fun, make it enjoyable, engage with the fans.
Make
it cheaper. Make it cheaper,
young people,
yeah.
I want to answer the question. 16 to 24-year-olds, A, aren't interested in football, or B, can't afford to go to games, pay for the subscriptions, do all that. Football is not, is financially inaccessible unless you're at least reasonably well off, at least comfortably off.
I mean, that's right. So, as United fans have found out to their cost, you go to a European away game at one of these clubs, and it costs you €100 to go. And season tickets, although they've been frozen at United, are expensive. Taking a family of 4, 2 kids, mum and dad, or whatever, you can buy a PlayStation for that amount of money, basically. And so, yes, football is an expensive form of entertainment, and no wonder that they are losing catchment of the community that they once had. I'd love to believe that this would herald a reassessment of all that, but of course we know it won't. We know it won't, and these old grey, mostly men, don't understand. It seems the product they are marketing and the community they're marketing to, and they got it wrong.
Talking of grey men who don't understand the community that they're marketing to, Woodward is. I thought
you were talking about me for a second.
No, there's a little bit of grey in the beard, Ed, but you've got a lot of the on top. It's hardly touched. I've got a lot more silver in the fox than you have at this point. The Woodward situation, to return to that subject, we said before the show, maybe we talk a little bit about what his legacy will be, and of course, Woodward's legacy at Manchester United is evil. This is the thing. Ed Woodward strikes me as quite a personable fellow. I remember him being interviewed in MUTV. I've said this on the show before, but I remember thinking he seems all right for someone that definitely votes Tory. The people that I know that have met him found him to be good company and all those kind of things. None of that excuses the fact that this man has conducted evil acts upon our club. He is in his job because he was the one who organised the leverage buyout. He was the man behind the scenes when the Glazers leveraged a buyout. And for listeners that haven't listened for a long time and weren't around in 2005, what that means is Manchester United was entirely debt-free. The club was bought with massive debt, which was then transferred from the owners onto the books of the club. So then Manchester United was suddenly in debt to the tune of the amount it cost to buy Manchester United. Unbelievable that that's a thing that can happen. Nonetheless, Woodward was the one who worked for, who was it that he worked for? Was it JP Morgan? No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. So he worked for JP Morgan and organised that buyout. He was rewarded by being made head of commercials at the club. Did this thing that was kind of widely lauded of segmenting the market. Basically selling sponsorships on a kind of very segmented basis to local companies around the world in the kind of global markets that hadn't been monetized yet. Well done. Everyone caught up with that, and he never had a single innovative idea after that for the rest of his time. He was then insanely over-promoted after David Gill left to be executive vice chairman, which meant that he was essentially in charge of Manchester United. Only the owners above him who would have signed off the checks would have had any kind of say above him. That means that he was responsible for the appointments of, we'll give him a pass on Moisey, because that was really Fergie and Gill that put that in place. But Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Louis van Gaal, by the way, Jose Mourinho, and then he's talking about how proud he is of hiring Ole Solskjaer and helping the club get back to its roots. It's like, well, I've smashed your window and I'm very, very proud that I've slightly started to repair it. You know, I've put this whole pane of glass back in. Don't worry about this gaping wind blowing through this other hole that I made. I'm really proud of this fantastic repair work I've started. Like, honestly, this absolute loser of an executive on every level, like just
on every level, and paid, remarkably handsomely for it. So we'll see him turn up back at JP Morgan, I imagine, trying to put together Super League 2 at some point. I jest.
I was talking to Musa Okwonga, and he said he's just going to do wealth management for the Glazers. He's only going to need to change his SIM card. He isn't even going to need to, he's just going to do the same job, wealth management for the Glazers. The thing that happened, apparently, was that after the game or at training yesterday, the players confronted Ed Woodward. Harry Maguire, very vocal, apparently. I wonder if he just said, "Get out of this club or I'm going to break your neck," at this point. The players were furious. Marcus Rashford, of course, tweeted the picture of the football without fans is nothing. Luke Shaw kind of was very measured and quite lovely. Statement saying he kind of was reluctant to do anything that would show his employers in a bad light, because he shouldn't really do that, but this didn't sit right with him, which I thought was a beautifully sort of measured and gentle way of putting it, and did his player of the season aspirations no harm. Yes,
and apparently many players were unsettled by this behind the scenes, partly to do with this sentiment that football should be competitive, partly to do with uncertainty around their contracts, and the fact that so much of their 25% of their wages and much of their bonuses is tied to Champions League football. And what would this mean for renegotiation? And partly because actually some major agents were saying, well, look, just because there may be more money for each of these clubs, there, and we talked about this on the last show, there are potentially controls in place, and it might actually mean less money for players. Because they were going to close up shop, which we see in American sports for sure. So, lots of things will have unsettled the players. The managers weren't given a heads up. The players certainly weren't. That was incredible hubris not to talk to those two communities from the people who were in charge. We never expect them to talk to fans because they just don't care. But the fact that this wasn't discussed with governing bodies, government, players, managers, ambassadors, or fans tells you something about the absolute cretins that were in charge of this process.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure we'll have much more to talk about in the years to come. Years to come? Days to come. Days to come. There is a game this weekend that we can watch with a bit more joy this time.
Yeah.
Than would have been the case, I imagine.
Absolutely. Before we talk about that, we really should talk a little bit about Jose Mourinho. I just feel like
yes, we don't even need to do a preview of leagues because we did it on the last show. But let's talk about Jose.
Honestly, this was as much of a shock as this was maybe more of a shock than when he got sacked from us. Because I'm sure everybody remembers that was listening to the show at the time. Literally, the show before he got sacked, I had more or less decided I wasn't going to do any more of these between then and the end of that season because I didn't know how to say anything more about how awful it was and the ways in which it was awful. And it felt, and I think I said, I can't see them ever changing it. And that was when we did our last emergency podcast. First one ever was Rooney, where we recorded a show, and then the next day he said he was staying. We did a brief one that was a Twitter-only release on the day we signed RVP. And Mourinho getting sacked, and then this one. I think that's all of them. But yeah, Mourinho was fired from Tottenham the week before a cup final. It was clearly he had lost the dressing room to such an extent that Levy thought the best way of them possibly winning a trophy was him getting fired. And Richard Jolly, excellent football journalist Richard Jolly, tweeted, "I think this means that Jose Mourinho is the only European Super League manager ever to be sacked that's ever going to be sacked."
It's great. Yeah. I look, the cynic in the back of my head says that Levy may well have been more fearful of Jose winning the Carabao Cup and not being able to sack him. So he's not actually, although he has been relieved of duties, he's still on the payroll. So he'll get paid his gardening leave until he gets another job, wherever that is.
Oh, interesting. So is that a way of not having to pay a big amount up front?
Yeah. I guess so.
I mean, I wondered whether they just were counting the chickens on the JP Morgan money coming in and using that to pay off Mourinho.
Yes, well, they'll have to reassess that. You know, they were in the Super League because of their shiny new stadium and not their shiny manager or their shiny team.
It's absolutely crazy.
Ryan Mason is taking over, 29 years old, retired because he had a nasty head injury a couple of years ago, and he'll be in charge until the end of the season. And I'm sure they'll get a big bump out of that because, like they were at Carrington, I'm sure the Spurs, when Mourinho got sacked at United, I'm sure the Spurs players are dancing around their training as we speak.
What's absolutely beautiful about this is loads of people shouted at us for a year that we were wrong and he was great. Well, actually, they haven't stopped. They shouted a year while he was still in charge, and they never stopped since. And what they were shouting is, "No, this isn't the thing that's happened. This isn't the thing that's happened." And while they've been shouting that, the exact same thing has happened again somewhere else. Exactly the same, only in a slightly condensed fashion. And this kind of, Jose's third season is arriving quicker and quicker and quicker. He's just going to, at his next job, he's just going to walk in and give a press conference being like, every player in this club is absolutely terrible. What am I expected to do with these people? It's going to happen day one in his next gig. So
yeah, day two, sacked. It'll be a faster moving story than the collapse of the Super League.
This has been a hell of a terrible 48 hours for our enemies. After that day when they beat us 6-1 and it was a good day for our enemies, today has been a terrible day for our enemies. He was sacked. Woodward's gone, or at least that we know when he's going. It's a shame that it's so dignified. This guy doesn't deserve a dignified, respectful corporate exit. He deserves to be hounded out of the thing that he pretended happened. That they tried to hound him out of the city, which,
Yes, that's right. Well, yes, he absolutely deserved a public sacking in the most humiliating fashion possible, and I wish him as much professional misery as there is possible to be had in the rest of his miserable, worthless career. But yes, he's leaving with a full double barrel praise from the Glazer family because, of course, he's helped them make them very wealthy and there's plenty of, I'm not going to read it all out, but you read some earlier, but there's plenty of double speak in that press release about how much they've invested and all of that. Absolute nonsense. So I think we can be sure that whoever's in charge of United beyond Woodward, if the Glazers are still there, it's going to be more of the same. Maybe they'll appoint someone competent, or maybe Richard Arnold will just get a promotion and And Matt Judge will get more responsibilities along with his head of football negotiation responsibilities.
Now, it's worth saying at this point, we've talked about how fast-moving this is, but there isn't actually official news saying this isn't happening anymore.
No, sure. We are definitely making that assumption, but there is apparently a meeting of the Super League 12. Or is it only 10 now?
Yeah, well, 10, yeah. Apparently, they were an hour ago. They were on a Zoom call together. Jordan Henderson said, "We don't like it, and we don't want it to happen. This is our collective position. Our commitment to this football club and its supporters is absolute and unconditional." That is a strongly worded statement from somebody within, like, the captain of that club. And apparently, there was a meeting earlier of all the captains and stuff. So, yeah. Anyway.
No. I mean, it's a good. We could look very silly putting this out, and there's another press release dropped at midnight tonight, which basically says we're doing it anyway. But I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's nearly impossible for them to push ahead in the face of pushback from government, from governing bodies, from fans, from players increasingly, and the floodgates will open now on that, and from rival clubs. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, now let's turn our attention to racism in football, to, Yes, well, as some people noted over the last couple of days, football mobilised a lot quicker to stop this than it has done to stop racism in the game.
and I think partly that's the bad reasons. And partly this was a one single focused thing that people could actively fight against. Not that the fight against racism doesn't need this kind of effort and energy, and it certainly does. I mean, it certainly desperately does. And we'll continue to talk about the things that we need to talk about and try and learn what we need to learn and do what we need to do. But for now, farewell, European Super League, we hardly knew ye. Farewell, Ed Woodward. Jesus Christ, we really did know ye, and it was an absolute pain. I don't know. I mean, there are lots of rumours that he didn't know much about this. I don't know if I said that earlier in the show. Lots of rumours that he didn't know much about this, and it seems weird. But anyway.
Well, there's certainly a friendship between Joel Glazer and John Henry at Fenway.
Right, yeah.
And some of the American owners in the Premier League, yeah.
So, all right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this emergency podcast. We'll be back. We will now be back after the Leeds game. I'm probably going to watch that game now, which I almost certainly wasn't going to, because I think yesterday I might not have been a Man United fan. I think, and my current status currently, just about a Man United fan, clinging on by my fingernails to the idea that I can do this, but,
fully compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
But we'll see where this takes us because I think there could well be more developments.
Absolutely.
For sure.
All right. Take good care, everyone. Much love.
Okay.
Here's power to the people.
Bye now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.